everybody, Mike and Hannah here with Delta Faucet. Now, if you're planning a bathroom renovation or even doing new construction, a new tub and wall set can make all the difference, and it's a project that we can help you tackle.
Now, keep in mind that building codes are different everywhere. Also, if there's a task that seems a little bit beyond your abilities, we definitely recommend contacting a professional for some help. You can also make sure that you're totally comfortable with all of these steps by reviewing this video before fully diving in.
It's also good to know that this is really a two-person job because there are certainly some steps along the way that require an extra set of hands. Now, before we get started, we want to make sure that you're watching the right video, so let's confirm a few things. First, take a look at your installation guide or packaging to confirm what series you've selected. Now, in this video, we'll cover a bathtub in Delta's Classic 500 Curve series. Today, we'll be installing a 60-inch by 32-inch bathtub with a left-hand drain configuration. However, keep in mind that this video will also work for any of Delta's Classic 500 Curve bathtubs, regardless of the drain position.
Finally, if you're pairing a matching wall set with your tub, make sure it's one of the Delta Classic 500 series options. If all of those things check out, you're watching the right video. If not, you might have a different Classic 500 model. But don't worry, we have videos for that too.
Now, before starting any plumbing related project, it's always a good idea to go ahead and shut off the water supply. So be sure to do that before you start this install. All right, next, let's collect the tools and supplies we may need to complete this installation. These include a drill. You also want to grab some safety glasses, a caulk gun, 6 tubes of adhesive, 2 tubes of sealant, a tape measure, a level, a carpenter's square, some shims, a drop cloth, a pencil, and we're gonna need a driver bit, some mortar if your subfloor is out of level, and a bit holder extension, as well as a 3/16 inch drill bit, 1 1/4 inch stainless or zinc plated truss head screws, a 1/4 inch square notch trowel, a saw, and some gloves.
You're also going to need a bathtub drain assembly. Now, it's not included with this model, so be sure to get a standard bathtub drain with a 13 3/4 inch height. And a little pro tip here, you may want to make sure that the drain finish coordinates with your trim finish.
Okay, with all of that out of the way, let's get started.
The first step is checking that our walls are plumb and square and that our subfloor is level. This is also a good time to check the framing requirements for your wall set or surround. So to check that our walls are plumb, we're gonna take our long level and put it against a stud, making sure that the bubble is in between the lines, and then doing the same step for each one of our stud locations in the opening. Next, we're gonna check to make sure that the subfloor is level. Place our level down, making sure that it's level at the back, the front, and both sides. Now, ours is level. If yours at home is not, you'll need to apply a mortar bed at a later step.
We also wanna make sure that the walls are square to one another. So to check this, I'm gonna be using my carpenter's square. Again, starting in my opening, down at one of my back corners, pushing the square all the way tight into the corner, and then checking to make sure I get good even contact along each edge of my square on the front and side. I also think it's a good idea to go ahead and check about 1.5 feet up or so. Again, making sure I'm tight to the back corner and looking to make sure my framing members are contacting the square evenly. Now I'm gonna go ahead and check the other side as well, but I do wanna point out that if there's any fine-tuned adjustments that need to be made, now is the time to do them, because it will help ensure that the installation goes that much easier in the later steps. So, once your opening is looking good, we can go ahead and move on to the next step.
Now we have our tub dry fit in place, and we've made sure that it's pushed all the way back, tight against the back wall, and making even contact at each one of our stud locations.
Now, if you do notice a little bit of a gap between the tub flange and that stud back behind it, that's totally okay. We're gonna close that with a shim in a later step. The big thing here is we wanna make sure that not only does our tub fit into our opening, but also that it's sitting level. So I've got my shorter level here. I'm gonna start by placing along the front, the back, and then also on each side to confirm that the tub is sitting perfectly level in the opening. Now, once everything looks good, we can pull the tub back out and move on to the next step.
And again, if your tub is out of level, you'll need to apply that mortar bed at a later step. All right, let's go ahead and move on. All right, we've gone ahead and taken our bathtub out of the opening, flipped it upside down, and have it resting on a drop cloth to protect the surface. Now it's time to attach our apron support to our apron using the included double-sided tape. And I've gone ahead and taken my gloves off for this step. I've also gone ahead and evenly spaced out our double-sided tape along the apron support. And I'm gonna stick my last piece on, take the backing off, And I have Mike holding the apron back so that it doesn't stick to our apron support before I'm ready for it to. All right, I'm gonna peel off the backing here. All right, now you want your apron support to sit about 1/4 inch below the edge of your apron. So I'm gonna have Mike hold that back while I start placing that. All right, I'm gonna move along, just like that. Okay, now we're ready to move on to the next step. All right, we've gone ahead and dry fit our tub back in place. Now it's time to make some reference marks so we know where to drill our pilot holes. I've also gone ahead and placed a piece of cardboard down to protect the surface of my tub. All right, so grab a pencil, and you're gonna make a reference mark in the center of the flange at each one of the stud locations in the opening.
We also need to make 2 marks along the front edge of each flange on our tub here for 2 more pilot holes. So again, with a pencil, I'm gonna make a little dot in the middle of the flange towards the top, and then another one down towards the bottom, repeating the same steps for the opposite side. Now, before we pull this tub back out of our opening, we also wanna mark where the apron contacts our subfloor. So again, with my pencil, I'm gonna start at the far side and mark all along the subfloor where the apron contacts it from side to side. Once you have all your references marked and the apron marked, we're gonna pull the tub back out and then move on to drilling our pilot holes. Okay, so to drill these pilot holes, we're gonna be using a 3/16 inch drill bit. You'll also notice that I have a drill bit extender on here, which will help give me a little bit more leeway, making sure that the spinning chuck of the drill doesn't come in contact with my tub, which could cause a little bit of damage. Now, when I'm ready, I'm gonna drill a pilot hole at each one of these pencil marks that I made in the last step, all the way around the top flange, and also be sure to get the 4 on the front, 2 on each side, to make sure we get those drilled as well. So, when you're ready, let's go ahead and drill those pilot holes. Now that we have those pilot holes drilled, we can move on to cutting our subfloor to accommodate our tub drain. Now, the most important thing here is making sure we're cutting the hole in the right side of our opening where that drain is gonna sit. So just confirm you're working in the right area. Next, we also need to make sure we're on the right center line of the drain. So to determine the center line, you wanna look at your installation booklet. In the front, there'll be a table that lists a bunch of model numbers of the tubs. Be sure to find the model number for the tub you've selected, and next to it will correspond with what the center line dimension needs to be. So once you have that, we're gonna take our tape measure and measuring off of the bottom plate and the back wall here, right where our tub's gonna sit, our tub drain, marking our center line. Okay. Now the size of the hole we're gonna cut for our drain is gonna be 6 inches wide by 12 inches deep. So I'm gonna take my tape measure again. I'm gonna line it up right on that center line I previously marked, and then make a mark 3 inches towards the inside and 3 inches towards the outside for a total width of 6 inches. Once I have those marks made, I'm gonna take my carpenter square, gonna hold it tight against my bottom plate on my sidewall here, and then extend a line out 12 inches from the bottom plate on the sidewall. Repeat the same steps for the other mark. Again, making sure I'm tight against the bottom plate and then out 12 inches. And the last mark I need to make is connecting those 2 ends of my lines to give myself a box. Now perfect, you can see I have my box where my drain is gonna sit, 6 inches wide and 12 inches deep. Once you have this marked, we can move on to actually cutting the subfloor.
All right, Mike has gone ahead and cut the hole in for our drain, and we've installed our drain according to the manufacturer's instructions. So now it's time to adhere our tub to our subfloor. Now, if your subfloor is out of level, this is when you'll need to apply your mortar bed. So mine is good, so I can go ahead with applying my adhesive. Now I have an adhesive that's safer plastics here, and a 1/2 inch square notch trowel. So I'm going to put my adhesive down, keeping it about 6 inches away from the reference mark that we made earlier and the other 3 sides of our opening, and then I'll spread it out using my trowel. All right, let's get to it. All right, we've got our adhesive spread out, we've taken off any protective plastic, and we have our tub set in place.
Now at this point, there's a few things we want to double check. First, we want to make sure that the tub is sitting tight against the back wall and fitting well in our alcove. Second, we want to make sure that the drain has set down inside of the hole that we cut in our subfloor in a previous step. And finally, when you're taking the tub, we want to make sure that we're lowering it straight down into our alcove onto the adhesive, not sliding it across, because that will help ensure that we're going to get a good bond with the subfloor.
All right, let's go ahead and secure it.
The first thing I've done is put a piece of cardboard back in the bottom of my tub to not only protect the finish, but also make sure I don't drop anything down the drain. Next, the screws we're going to be using are going to be 1.25 inches long, stainless steel or zinc, and a truss head type screw. Then on my drill, you'll notice I have the appropriate driver bit as well as a drill bit extension. And what this is going to do is give me a little bit more leeway, making sure that the spinning chuck of the drill doesn't come in contact with the edge of my tub, because that could cause a little bit of damage to the finish. And when I tighten these screws up, I'm going to go through each one of the pilot hole locations that we drilled in a previous step. And when I tighten them, I want to make sure they're just snug. I don't want to over tighten the screws because that could cause damage to the flange itself. And the final thing I'm going to keep an eye out for is, as I'm working my way around to each one of these pilot hole locations, is making sure that the tub flange and the rough frame behind it are coming in contact evenly. If I have any gaps of, say, greater than 1/8 of an inch, I want to make sure that I take a shim, gently drop it down between the framing and the flange, and now I can go ahead and snug that screw into place at that location. So with all that said, and once you're ready, let's work our way around the opening at each one of those pilot holes, including the ones along the front, and they'll be ready to move on to some of the final steps of this installation. All right, we finished securing our tub to our rough framing. We've scored and snapped off any shims we may have used, and we've also given ample time for any adhesive or the mortar bed to fully cure according to the manufacturer's instructions.
Now the final step of this install is actually going to come after your finished floors are installed. You'll need to apply a bead of sealant all along the front of the tub where the tub meets your finished floor. Now, if you're not moving on to installing the matching wall set, after your finished walls are in, you'll need to apply a bead of sealant where the wall meets the tub on all 3 sides.
And if you are moving on to installing the matching wall set, be sure to check out the separate video that we have for that, and we'll walk you through the install step by step. Okay, that about wraps up the tub. So remember, if you have any additional questions, you can always reach out to the Delta Faucet customer service team. They're more than happy to help.